All right guys, we're gonna start with the installation of our new Cat6 for this 2025 Ram 1500 with the new 3-liter Hurricane motor. Now this part number is 32457 and it works in both the standard output and the high output applications. There's only one difference in the installation that we'll point out when we get to that, but the device works in both vehicles and the module will be able to determine which calibration it needs once it pulls the VIN and you've got the app on your phone. But to start this installation, just like any of our products, we're going to start by disconnecting the negative terminals on the battery. So we're going to get our 10mm ratchet and we're going to loosen up this post on the main battery. And we're going to get that disconnected and set aside. And then we're also going to make a disconnect on the auxiliary battery that's right here behind the main. So we've got our main battery here, we've got an auxiliary behind, so we need to make sure we disconnect both negatives on the main and the auxiliary. So they're both 10mm. Just remove that nut and then take that terminal off. And then obviously we want to make sure that those aren't going to touch anywhere throughout the installation process. So now that we've got our batteries disconnected, we can move on to the next part of our install, which is going to require a switching to a 13mm on our ratchet. And we're going to move our camera over so you can see the engine cover next. All right, so we've repositioned our camera so you can see our engine cover. We're gonna start by taking off our oil cap and then using our ratchet and our 13mm wrench. There is a 13mm bolt right on the very center at the back side of that engine cover. Won't be able to see it with the camera, but you'll be able to see it once you get up on top of the truck. We've got this large metal capture nut that holds it in place, and then that cover can just be lifted up. You'll see there's a rubber holder right here that it presses into, and then there's one on the back passenger corner. You can lift it up and then pull it forward, and that will be completely set aside. And now you can see the entire engine. This new 3-liter is quite the performer in stock form, but we're gonna add some major power to it with this Cat6 module. The other big thing at this point, we're gonna put that oil cap back on, just so by any chance we don't drop something down into that motor. Now with that cover removed, you get the whole engine bay. We've got two main harnesses that are included with our Cat6. This is a harness that goes in the cab. You'll see there's a green connector on one end. This will come through the firewall. We have our OBD2 connector, and then this is our connector that goes to the throttle pedal itself, right above the throttle pedal in the cab. So this harness will move into the cab to install. But here, while we're under the hood, we've got our main harness that we'll be installing next. So we've got our large connector. This is where we connect the main connector at the ECM. We've got this connector that plugs directly into the Cat6 module itself. We've got that green connector that's going to go through the firewall. And then over here we've got a map sensor and a mass airflow sensor that we're going to tap into over here on the other side of the engine. So this is just going to run straight across the engine like so. So we'll reposition so that we can make our main connections on this side. So this harness will lay out so that our main connector will be placed right here on top of our fuse box. This is where our module will be mounted. Inside your package, you'll see that there's some double-side 3M Velcro tape that will attach this permanently to that fuse panel. But we're gonna start by getting this routed so that we can make our connection at the ECM. Got these two big connectors here, and then obviously we'll route this cable nicely across the engine and away from any moving parts, away from any heat. So we'll get our camera repositioned so you can see how we make these connections here next. All right, so our first connection is going to be right here at our mass airflow sensor. This is right on top of the airbox. This is the tube running from the airbox to the engine. This is the mass airflow sensor right here. So this connector is really easy to disconnect. You'll see on the bottom side of the connector there's a white plug keeper. We can show you on these. There's this white colored keeper, and you basically just have to get your thumbnail on it and pull it back on the factory connector. And once that's pulled back, that connector will come undone, and then we're going to piggyback our harness into that same sensor. So one end into the sensor. It'll only go one way. You'll hear it click, and then you want to close that keeper to make sure it's safely secured. And then we want to take the harness side of the truck and plug into the other end of our piggyback harness. Again, you'll hear it click. Make sure it's a good secure connection. And then you can see that white keeper there that we want to close to make sure it stays connected and there's no issues there. We do include some zip ties in the kit so you can make sure that this wiring harness gets tucked up nice and secure out of the way of everything. And then we're going to move over to our map sensor. So we'll reposition the camera one more time. All right, here we are on the top of the engine, and right here in the center you can see our map sensor right here on top of the motor. You've got these two tubes that run across the top of the motor. We've got our coolant reservoir. You can see the map sensor right here on top. Super easy to get to. You'll pull back that clear white colored connector, the safety keeper, and then that connector will come disconnected and we can plug in our Cat6 harness. All right, so we've got our map sensor and our mass airflow sensor connected. Now we're going to move over here to the driver's side of the engine, where we're going to make our main harness connection for the PCM, which is located right here on the side. So to make this connection, you'll see that there is a red keeper on that connector that we need to pull back with our nail. Once that's pulled back, we can disengage the lock that's in the center. You basically just push down on that with your thumb, right where that red keeper had been positioned. Once you depress that, you'll see that this white lever can move, and we basically just need to rotate that lever all the way back towards the firewall, and this connector will then come apart like so. Once that's disconnected, the Cat6 harness can plug directly in place of it. You'll see that there's a male and a female end for that connector, and we're going to go ahead and plug that in just like it came apart. It'll slide together. You'll see that lever will move, and you just need to pull that lever all the way back to the front of the truck and then close that red keeper. And the same thing on the other harness side. We're going to make that connection, slide it together, and you'll see once you start to engage it, that lever will move on its own, and you can then close that lever all the way till it locks. And then again, make sure you close that red keeper to make sure that it all stays engaged and nothing can come disconnected. At that point, we can move on to getting the Cat6 module plugged in and installed and mounted on our fuse panel, and then we will move to our in-cab harness that we will connect to this green connector here under the hood. All right, so we've got our PCM connector made, and we're going to go ahead and plug in our Cat6 module. It'll only go in one way, and you'll hear it click when it's secure. Once it's clicked, again, there's some Velcro and double-side sticky that will allow you to mount it right here on top of the fuse box. That way it can be taken off. You can still access your fuses and everything you need from there. But next we'll move into the cab, and we'll make our connections there and come through our firewall so we can make our final connection. So we've got this connector right here at the top of our throttle pedal. It's really easy to disconnect. You'll see that there's a keeper on the seat facing side of it that you can put your fingernails on each side of it, the driver and passenger side of that connector, and just pull it straight back towards the driver's seat. By pulling that back, the whole harness will come disengaged at the pedal, and you can set it aside. And then our new Cat6 module, our connectors will work just like that. So we've got one side connector that's going to plug into the factory pedal, just like that factory connector. And you've got a red keeper, and that just push it to close it in place. And then we can connect the truck's harness to our harness in the same fashion. Push it closed, and that connection's made. And then we can move over to our OBD pedal or OBD connector and run through the firewall. Now to get through the firewall, we're going to go right through this grommet right here where your hood latch goes through. So you can pull this back and you'll see that grommet inside. We're going to just cut a small slit on that grommet to run our green connector through the firewall so we can connect to the Cat6 module under the hood. All right, so we're back under the hood. We've got our harness, our engine side harness and our in-cab harness. We're going to go ahead and just plug those together. You'll see that there's a detent on one side, so this can only go together one way. There's a tab on the compartment or the vehicle side. It'll go into a slot on the engine side. Once that connection's made tight, go ahead and get that positioned, and then we can reconnect those battery terminals at this point. Get that. Go ahead and put our auxiliary post on. Then we'll go ahead and put the main battery connector on. And then we'll use that 10mm ratchet to make sure those are nice and secure. And then we can go on to syncing the app to the module, to the truck, and we can go through those app features with you. Just a second here. All right, got that auxiliary tight. Got our main battery terminal tight. Okay, we're good to go there. Then we'll make sure you put that engine cover back on. It's just that 113mm. And then we'll move into the cab and work with syncing to the module into the truck. All right, so we are ready to connect our module to the smartphone app. To do so, the very first time you connect your app to the device needs to be within 12 inches of the module under the hood. So we're going to go ahead and turn on our ignition without starting the truck by just pressing the start button without our foot on the brake. And then we're going to come back out here. We've downloaded our DiabloSport Cat6 right from the App Store for iOS and for Android. We're going to open up that app and hold it next to our module here. And we're going to wait for it to connect. Now, the very first time you connect, it's going to prompt you to create an account, and that's so that we can send you updates. If there's any changes to the calibrations or any updates of any kind for the module, we will send them to your account, and your app will actually notify you that there's updates available. So the first time you connect, you'll get prompted with creating that account, and then it's going to check to make sure that your module's up to date. If it's not, you can select update. It'll send all of the latest firmware, software to the device, and then the app will open up to this home screen. Once we get to that home screen, we can basically do everything we need with the app to control power levels. You'll see that we've got 3 performance power levels in the module. Level 1 for 91 octane, level 2 for 93 octane, and then level 3 for 93 octane as well. And then you'll also see on the right side of that screen, it says throttle, and then there's some numbers attached. So if you select one of those numbers with your finger on the side of that power level, it'll open up the pedal sensitivity menu. And then you can set that pedal sensitivity for whichever pedal feels the best for your driving situation. So if you prefer driving on 91 octane all the time, you're going to run our level 1 tune. Its default is at pedal sensitivity 2, which is our drive setting. But if you want your pedal to feel touchier, more responsive, you can turn that up to one of the other levels. And then once you select it, it'll save that as the default pedal setting for that power level. And you can do that for each individual power level. So we can set it a little bit softer on level 1. We can set it much more aggressive on the higher power levels. The other cool thing with this app is that you're able to go into your diagnostics menu. You can go in and read and clear trouble codes, and then we can also check your emissions readiness. So if you live in a county that requires emissions testing every year, before you go in to do that emissions testing, you can open the app and see that all of your monitors are set, so that you're not wasting your trip to the emission shop. The other feature we've added to our app is boost by gear. This allows us to go in and specify how much boost we have in each gear in our 8-speed transmission, so that we can fine tune the acceleration. So you can go ahead and enable your boost by gear, and then you can go in and scale how much of the boost we want to add in each specific gear, so that if you're having troubles with traction in the lower gears when you're first taking off, if you're at the track or whatever, you can adjust how much power we're adding in each specific gear just by changing that in that level in each gear. So we can scale that all the way up and down and kind of get it to fine tune where it works the best for your truck, your situation, and then you go in and save those settings. That's kind of a really neat feature that I think a lot of guys are really gonna love. But that kind of goes over the installation and the app. We look forward to getting your feedback on this module. It's been a fun engineering process to develop for this new Hurricane, and we're really excited to get the feedback from you guys in the field and see what you think of the new Cat6 from DiabloSport.